Hello and welcome to the FinTech Finance Virtual Arena. I'm your host, Doug Mackenzie, and on today's episode, we have a really special episode because we're going to be deep diving into Plastic Bank, and joining me today is the founder, David Katz. David, thank you so much for joining me here today. How are you doing?
Doug, I'm amazing. Thank you very much, and remarkable simultaneously. Thanks for having me on your show.
Well, that's brilliant. That's a lot better than me, who's just medium and average. So, I think we're going to be kicking off really. And I think the best way to kind of do it is, David, if you don't mind, Plastic Bank isn't exactly like the other banks that we have typically on the virtual arena. So for our audience who might not be aware, can you tell us a bit more about Plastic Bank?
You know, there's just so much inside of that. And of course, I got to be in the consideration of people who are listening here. But everyone who is listening is still just a human. And I don't think that anyone today that is, aware or awake is unfamiliar with the devastation that's occurring in the environment or in the oceans. And so we're a bank for the poor in the end. So, we can either go and try to clean up the oceans and be futile in that attempt by trying to go out and pick up material from the middle of the ocean, or prevent it from entering the ocean to begin with. And that's really what we are. So we're a global chain of bank branches for the world's poor, where you can deposit plastic waste by mass or by the kilo and withdraw the things you need the most. Cash, of course, but we immediately exchange to school tuition and medical insurance and Wi-Fi and cooking fuel, clean water, everything the world's poor need but couldn't afford, using garbage as money. We've created a monetary standard out of that material resource and others that truly puts value back in the hands of the world's emerging. And then inside of it, there's all the financial tools inside of it. It's financial inclusion in the end, using garbage as money. Exchange it immediately for insurance products. But I think more importantly, the more frequently you return the material, and the higher the quality and all the consistency and reliability that we in the Western world called a credit rating or credit score, we provide to the world's poor. Based on how frequently you return the material, you can easily substantiate your reliability. And then everything else that occurs inside of that.
That's absolutely amazing, and there's so much to unpack there, which we're obviously going to find out a bit further. But before we go any further, can you actually tell me a bit about yourself and your journey to creating Plastic Bank?
Well, I'm just some dude out of Vancouver. I'm just a Canadian, inspired by change, knowing that something has to occur in the world. I'm awake to the knowing that if someone needs to do it, then I can do it because I'm someone as well. I'm not irregular by any means. I'm a high school graduate that have just committed myself to ongoing learning. I really don't have a specific realm of education, but what I do have is the capacity and tenacity to persevere. And I have the capacity to operate in arenas of high stress and high uncertainty. And I do that in a way, that provides outcome, because I'm focused on outcome. I'm focused not on the journey, but on the destination.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that this virtual arena isn't as high stress as some of the other ones you've had to fit into. Now, to me, I think really you've kind of hit the nail on the head when you were talking about financial inclusion, because to me, that is what FinTech is about. It is about allowing people to get access to financial services and products that they should have had hundreds of years ago, but for some unknown reason, that's just not happened.
Unknown reasons, there's all kinds of known reasons why the poor continue to be suppressed. But
yes, exactly. Now, one of the strongest aspects behind Plastic Bank is shifting the value of plastic itself. And it's so interesting. We hear all the time in the virtual arena people talking about creating digital currencies out of nothing. We already have this anathema against the world in the form of plastic and trash, and you're turning that into a currency. Can you tell us a bit more about that, please?
I'm still resonating on the shifting the value, or the words you used, because I think that it's just simply revealing the value. It's not like we have to give something that doesn't have value. It already has value. It's already a petroleum resource. It inherently has value. It's oil. And so how do we exhibit that value? And then how do we multiply that value? Which is where things like, the ability to, for a household in the Philippines, for instance, where a mother can name herself as a beneficiary on an insurance policy that she places on her husband. In the event that something happens to him at work and he can't earn an income, the family's not left destitute. So she can name herself as a beneficiary. So for her, the plastic now is a sense of security, a sense of safety, a sense of, the ability to continue to steward her children. It's not necessarily the money itself, but what the money gets that is the big value. You see, there's all kinds of different ways to reveal value in thing. It's not binary. It truly is exponential.
Well, with that in mind, it seems to be a very much an end-to-end situation here. You've talked about, obviously, your customers can get cash, but they can get other things from, as you said, education, Wi-Fi. Now, how do you go about doing that? How do your branches go beyond just collection points for offering up all this plastic?
Well, a school is a bank branch. So, like within Haiti, where hundreds of thousands of children can't afford to go to school because the government can't pay for the education system. So every family pays $20 a month to have a child go to school. Well, beyond the realms of most. So now we educate the school that then engages families and says, well, when you collect enough plastic and you bring the plastic, you can pay for the school tuition and your child can be included. We also provide insurance packages around that as well. So once a child begins going to school, if something happens to the income of the family, it doesn't interrupt the education of the child. You see, it's a huge multiplier as well, just in that concept, in that when you're using plastic to go to school and you got, it's easy to collect $20 worth of material over the course of a month. And now the family looks at the material profoundly differently as well. And this is one of the great multipliers, which is why school tuition is so important, because it's not the $20 a month. Like, they don't look at it as plastic. They don't look at it as packaging. They don't look at it even as the $20 a month. They look at it as the end of poverty, because your poverty won't leave the family unless the children are literate. Like, if you can't even read or write, you're doomed to poverty. And so see, it's escape, it's hope, it's opportunity, it's seeing into the future. That's the multiplier. It gives access where it wasn't available before. Now, I continue to be in the communication over these things because this is really what the plastic bank is. It's not the money. It's not the plastic. It's the access that it provides. What kind of access does credit worthiness provide? What other small business could we provide? What other opportunities are there for us to distribute products through people who we know are reliable and consistent? Untold.
Yeah. And I think that's so incredible to hear this exponential knock-on effect, just starting from the baseline and what it's going to do to all these communities that you operate in. Now, with that in mind, where is Plastic Bank based, and why did you choose those regions in particular?
I'm Canadian. We're headquartered out of Vancouver. We've got all the heart and soul of a beautiful, social life. And we began in Haiti, which is just a crazy place. And you may have heard that the president was just assassinated. And I mean, it's chaos there. And then we went to the Philippines, and then Indonesia, and then Brazil, and then Egypt. And now we're going into Thailand and Cameroon. And then next year, Tanzania and Kenya. We have our eyes really set on Nigeria, which is its own beast. But we're required to be there. The Niger is one of the major contributing rivers to marine debris in the world. There's the world needs us. Poverty is still prevalent. So, there's still billions of people under the international poverty line. So, and that hasn't changed much either, just in the conversation. We've talked about under $2 a day for a decade or so. So, yeah. The number, extreme poverty continues to rise.
Now, speaking obviously, all that's going on, for instance, in Haiti, you've kind of created a system that doesn't have to rely on fiat currencies because of the services that you guys provide. I think that's going to be incredible when a government is in flux like that. So, can you tell me a bit more about what this circular economy is and how you can keep feeding these people, or at least enabling them to continue to thrive when everything else is very difficult?
I think that what allows someone to thrive really in the conversation is that their, own inherent sense of value, worth, and opportunity. It's not that we give anyone anything. We give them a new way of thinking and a paradigm that they then set themselves free. Because when they themselves now know that they have something to rely on, they can fall back on, they can grow from, they know that opportunity lies there, they themselves become unlimited. They can then help other people as well because they know that there's more. As opposed to being in a finite, labor opportunity or looking for labor where you're paid pennies a day, no matter how hard you work, you'll never escape the confines of the poverty. Well, it's an unlimited business opportunity now. It's true entrepreneurship. Go create a route, go door to door, business to business, go figure out where other, large accumulations of plastic are. You're unlimited with this. It's just a way of thinking, really, right? That's the end of poverty in the end, right? Poverty is not the lack of material good by any means. I mean, a lot of people think that it is, but it's zero to do with that. Right?
That's really
lack of hope.
Yeah, and it just shows that that kind of poverty, it's almost too simplistic to look at it as lacking those funds, when in fact it bleeds into every part of these people's lives.
Yeah. Right.
Now, if we were to look at that mission that you guys have kind of laid down from this, I mean, I can already tell from what you've been telling me about how much you care about this. Can you tell me a bit more about what your mission is for Plastic Bank and maybe yourself going forward?
Well, there's a bit. The vision of the organization ultimately is to help interrupt virgin plastic production. There's over 10 trillion kilos of plastic on the earth. All the plastic we've ever produced, almost all of it is still here. The world this year will use around 500 billion kilo, where there's already 10 trillion kilo on the earth. We keep making more. It's, it's inside of that, of course, when we look at the value of the material and say it's roughly $1 a kilo, there's $10 trillion worth of material already on the planet. It's estimated that 500 billion will end extreme poverty globally. We've been inadvertently depositing the very value to end all suffering, all inequality, all pain. And we get to go and use that now and use that as good. Yeah. And then, inside of what we do, of course, it's the blockchain-based application for us to give authenticity, transparency, and all the other tools that the world needs to rely on the good that's being done, while still being a for-profit business.
That's absolutely brilliant, and you've hit on a topic I wanted to bring up. If we look at the tech behind what you guys operate on, you do use blockchain technology, and so often we get bankers or tech companies talking about the use cases of blockchain technology, and we'll see it employed in the future. But you guys already do, don't you? I mean, can you tell us a bit more what that provides your employees, but also your customers?
Well, I think it's important that we create a distinction between blockchain and crypto, which many people believe are synonymous, and they're not. It's ultimately an authenticated, encrypted database. So we provide authenticated data to our customers, and I use a binary example of it. In that when we look at data, when we look at where we want to input value, when we look at ones and zeros, and when I look at lies or fabrications or the non-truth, I think we can naturally then give that a value of 0. When we look at the truth, when we look at what is, let's give that a value of 1. Well, if I'm to apply energy to 0, I get 0, no matter how much energy. If I apply 1,000 units of energy to 0, I get 0. If I apply 1,000 energy units to truth, then that's where I get the multiplication. So for us to be able to understand exactly where the value lies, to understand where the truth lies, that we can apply to the truth, is the most important thing that we can do for the world. So for us, that's the way we use the blockchain. That's really, in its essence, what we do. We look for authenticity and apply energy there.
Interesting. And I imagine, does that play a part in being able to help facilitate the improvement of some of your customers' credit scores, for instance?
I think it provides a space for the world to participate, which ultimately results then in our collectors being able to have a demand for more material so that when they go and get more material, they make more money as well. And so that the Western consumer can actually look and go, oh, who collected the material? How much did they collect? How much money ended up in their hands? Our customers, the biggest brands in the world, because to close the loop here, the plastic we collect, that the collector, with tens of thousands of collectors, the material that they collect, we call social plastic. I mean, if you resonate on the name, like it's not virgin plastic, it's not recycled, it's social plastic. It's by society, for society, that changes society. Social plastic we sell to great companies like Henkel and SC Johnson and Hugo Boss and Procter & Gamble and so many others that use the material back in their packaging so that they can engage with the consumer. So the consumer can go, oh, okay, well, if it's plastic, at least it's plastic that was prevented from flowing into the ocean. And by buying it, I helped end someone's suffering simultaneously. But think of the story. I mean, for some people, it's like, oh, it's too good to be true. Well, it's not too good to be true. And here's the blockchain and look for yourself. Yeah. All right. So that as well, because see, even that authenticity gives more power into the hands of the consumer so that they feel more powerful to buy more things. You see, that's more energy applied to truth. That's just the way that it works in the world.
Yeah. And now with that in mind then, you've brought in, as you said, you closed the loop. We've talked about how the impetus of the plastic being created, the collectors, improving their lives, and then also these huge brands that associate with your collectors and kind of benefit from that. So, I mean, realistically, what is next? What are the next steps for Plastic Bank in the short term, and really, what's going to be happening in the next couple of years? We've already talked about your kind of global expansion as well.
Yeah, certainly growth is critically important. The ocean can't wait. We need to be everywhere. We have a few models that are exponential. Schools certainly exponential. When we consider growth around the world, we know that the fastest way to expand is that we don't have to build anything. So if we don't build anything, well, what does that look like? Well, schools, every small village, no matter where you are, engages the community, and we need to begin changing the paradigm in children so that they know that by stewarding the environment that poverty can leave the family. That's a powerful message on its own, one that would just that thinking can change the world. So that certainly is there. And then congregation as well. When we look at, temple, mosque, church around the world, every small village has one of those as well. And we've created some powerful programming for faith-based organizations that encourage the parishioner to not just bring in their tithing or offering, but to bring in their recycling as tithing, which is also globally exponential. So how might I create bank branches around the world that truly engage every community? Then there's cooperatives and a bunch of other things, but we're growing quickly in that manner as we continue to create a licensing type model. What really is on the horizon for us is to return the material we collect, social plastic, at below the cost of traditional recycled content. How might I provide material that helped change the world and kept it out of the ocean and be less expensive than regular post-consumer material? That's what we're on the precipice of. And we'll be doing that through licensing and a few other models for our customers, so that there will never be any reason for the world to not change and shift. So that's what we know we need to do. We've got to be better, faster, cheaper, and we've got to be more powerful and gain more scale and find more customers and continue to create the demand, the pull for the material that then creates the demand inside the heart of the collector to go and pull more material as well. We need to be in every single household. It can't be just collectors that are out doing it full time. What we really need to do is create a space for every single mother that, looks at the material that comes into her house and says, oh, that's for me. I'm endeavoring to create a universal basic earned income for every household so that the mother can look at it and go, oh, every month, just based on our consumption, I bring in an extra $2 worth of materials into the house. They're all resources that I return into the process. So it could be returned to manufacturing. And that $2 gets me Wi-Fi and cell phone minutes and access to clean water and insurance policies, while also earning me the ability to prove who I am in the world so I could borrow money in the future as well. Because if I know that consistently you can borrow $24 or you can earn $24 a year, I can loan you all kinds of money that can change your life, of which you would then pay back in plastic. We created a monetary standard, and the high level of it, it's really about creating a standard of exchange and a methodology of exchange of material resources. Now, we're not just plastic. We, also collect, paper and, aluminum and everything else as well. We will be the world's largest commodity broker.
That's absolutely incredible. I think we're coming up to time, but David, I've got to ask just before we finish, how can other people that aren't in these environments help out with Plastic Bank, and what can we do to kind of help establish that new paradigm?
Well, besides the obvious of going in and going to Plastic Bank and participating that way, which is nice, but not what I want you to do. What I want you to do is to be courageous. I want you to walk into a store. I want you to walk into your favorite place where you do your shopping, and I want you to ask the manager and say, "Manager, could you point out those products in your store that are regenerative? Point out those that have helped society. Could you point out those that have, at minimum recycled content? Because those are the ones that I want to buy, and I want to buy more of those." He'll probably have some, and he'll be pleased that you asked, because that's what they're beginning to offer. But every time you go in and ask, it creates the absolute demand. It creates the space for more of that to occur, because the big FMCGs of the world, you are not their customer at all. The retailer is their customer. They don't listen to you. They care about the retailer. The retailer listens to you. So if you go in and are vocal and say, "Please show me that," that's where the shift begins. Now we see great, organizations like Aldi and Lidl that are now making demands of their suppliers to say that unless they have sustainability in the heart of their products, they'll be delisted. Now that's coming because consumers are demanding it. So the more people who are listening go out and do that, the faster the change occurs. You can't sit back and continue to buy those things that are killing the earth and degrading society, and then sit back and complain that no change is occurring. You're the most powerful consumer group that has ever existed. Show up.
Nice. Well, David, I think that's all we have time for. And thank you for those inspirational words, because it does start with you. The buck stops with you, and it starts with you. Time to act. So thank you very much. And also to all our viewers as well, thank you for watching. You can catch the rest of the series and much more over at www.fintechf.com, and of course YouTube and LinkedIn. I'll see you there. David, once again, thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you, Doug.